Sometimes it's not a loud thought that keeps you awake. It's the way your shoulders stay slightly lifted, as if they're still waiting for something to happen. You might notice it when the room is already quiet. Lights dim. Phone face down. Nothing asking for your attention anymore. And yet, the body hasn't received the message. Breath moves in, moves out, but it doesn't quite sink all the way down. Not wrong, just unfinished. As if somewhere along the day, the body learned to stay ready and forgot how to stand down. You're not tense in an obvious way, not clenched, not anxious in a sharp sense, more like a low hum beneath the skin, a background alert, so familiar that it feels normal. And maybe that's why it's confusing, because if someone asked you, "What's wrong?" there wouldn't be a clear answer. Nothing is wrong. The mind scans gently anyway, just in case. A habit learned quietly, over time. Breath again. This time you might feel how the chest rises before the belly does, as if the breath stops halfway, checking something, then continues. You don't need to change it. Just noticing is enough. The body has its own memory. It remembers moments when relaxing wasn't safe, when being fully soft meant being unprepared. So it learned to compromise. Stay mostly calm, but not completely. That middle state stayed. Now, even in safety, even in silence, the body keeps doing what once worked. Not because you're broken, not because something is wrong, because the body is loyal. You might feel this loyalty in the jaw, or behind the eyes, or in the way the hands rest. Never fully heavy. There's no instruction here, no need to release anything. The body doesn't let go when it's told to. It lets go when it feels met. So you stay with it, like sitting next to someone who doesn't need advice, just presence. Breath arrives, leaves. Thoughts drift near, then pass without finishing themselves. And somewhere underneath all of that, something begins to understand. Nothing is being demanded right now. Nothing needs to be managed. The body can keep its guard and still be allowed to rest a little. Not all at once, not dramatically, just enough to feel the weight of the moment, the bed, the air, the quiet. And the space between breaths grows slightly wider, without effort, without decision, as if the body is remembering a softer way to exist that was never actually lost, only postponed. The story doesn't need to go anywhere from here. It can simply continue, slowly, the way nights do when nothing is wrong and nothing needs to happen. There's a moment, sometimes, when the body almost relaxes and then pulls back, not sharply, not dramatically, just a subtle pause, like a hand hovering above a surface before deciding whether it's safe to rest. You might feel it in the breath again, that tiny hesitation at the top or the bottom, as if the body is listening for something that never arrives. The room stays quiet, nothing changes, and still the habit remains. Not because the body is stubborn, because it learned slowly, over many small moments when staying alert felt necessary. No single memory needs to appear. The body doesn't store stories the way the mind does. It stores readiness. You don't have to trace it back. Just notice how effort exists, even when there's nothing to do. The eyes may feel tired, yet the muscles around them stay slightly engaged. The brow doesn't fully smooth. The tongue rests, but not completely. These are not mistakes. They're signs of care. The body has been caring for you longer than you remember, so there's no rush to convince it otherwise. Breath moves again, and this time, maybe the exhale lasts a fraction longer. Not because you made it, because the body sensed that nothing interrupted the last one. No signal, no demand, just air leaving. That's how trust rebuilds, not through instructions, through repetition of safety, moment after moment, where nothing bad follows stillness. The mind may wander briefly, a half-thought forms, then loses interest. That's fine. Thoughts don't need to disappear for rest to deepen. They just need to stop being important, like sounds outside the room. Heard, but not followed. The body listens more than the mind does. It notices the weight beneath you, the way gravity keeps holding without asking anything in return. You don't have to sink into it. You're already supported. Sometimes tension stays because it thinks release must be earned. That rest comes after everything is done. But nights don't work that way. Night doesn't ask if you deserve to soften. It simply arrives. And the body can learn, slowly, that it's allowed to arrive too. You may feel warmth somewhere unexpected, or a slight heaviness in the limbs, or nothing at all. All of it is welcome. There's no finish line here, no moment you're waiting for, just the gentle unlearning of holding, breath by breath, without keeping track. And even if tension remains, even if the body stays partially awake, that's okay. Rest doesn't require perfection. It begins the moment you stop arguing with how things are. So you stay, you listen, you let the night continue its quiet work. Nothing to fix, nothing to solve. Only this ongoing soft noticing that slowly, almost without permission, begins to feel like rest. There's a quieter layer beneath effort. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask to be found. Sometimes you notice it only after the body stops explaining itself. Breath keeps moving, not watched closely anymore, just happening. And in that happening, the body begins to reorganize on its own, not all at once, in small, almost unnoticeable shifts. A shoulder settles a few millimeters lower, the jaw loosens, then tightens again, then loosens without comment. This back and forth is natural. It's how trust returns, not as a decision, but as a pattern. You might feel a subtle tiredness that wasn't there before, not exhaustion, more like permission, as if the body is realizing it doesn't have to stay upright inside. The mind drifts nearby, touches a thought, lets it go halfway through. No need to finish sentences here. The night doesn't complete things. It dissolves them. There may be a sense of falling, very slight, as if the body forgets where it ends for a moment. That's not something to follow, just something to allow. The bed stays steady, the room stays the same. Only the internal effort shifts from holding to floating. You don't have to relax. That idea itself can be tiring. The body relaxes when it realizes it's no longer being watched closely, so attention softens too. Instead of focusing, you rest alongside whatever appears. A sound, a sensation. Then, nothing in particular. Even the sense of you becomes less defined. Not gone, just less solid. Like a shape in dim light that doesn't need a name. There's a deep intelligence in this, older than thought, older than explanation. It knows how to power down gently without being told. You don't need to help it. Just keep allowing the night to do what it already knows. Breath leaves, doesn't rush back. A pause appears, not empty, not full. And in that pause, the body rests without calling it rest. The story continues, but it no longer needs words. Only the slow, quiet unfolding that feels less like doing and more like being carried by something that was always here. At some point, effort forgets itself. not suddenly. More like when a sound fades and you can't remember the exact moment it stopped. The body is still here, the bed is still here, but the sense of managing any of it has grown thin. Breath moves in a softer pattern now, uneven in a gentle way. No rhythm to follow. No need to notice each turn. The mind may surface briefly, checking in, as it has done so many times before. Then it finds nothing urgent and drifts back again. That drifting isn't sleep yet. It's the doorway that doesn't look like one. Thoughts no longer arrive fully formed. They come as fragments, images without context, half feelings that don't attach to words. You don't reach for them. They pass on their own. The body feels heavier, but not weighed down, more like being held from underneath instead of holding itself up. Muscles stop reporting in, signals quiet down, not because they were silenced, because they're no longer needed. There's a softness in the space behind the eyes, a dimming that feels natural, like the room lowering its lights without asking. You don't have to follow the dimming. It happens whether you notice or not. The sense of time loosens. Minutes stop lining up. The idea of before and after loses interest. Only this moment remains, wide enough that nothing presses against it. If a sensation appears, it doesn't interrupt. It blends. If a thought appears, it doesn't explain itself. It fades halfway through. You might feel yourself slightly receding from the edges of the body, not leaving, just no longer guarding the borders. This is how the body rests when it's finally allowed to do so its own way. No instruction, no achievement, just the quiet recognition that nothing is being asked of it now. And in that recognition, even the idea of staying awake becomes unnecessary. The night continues its slow movement. The story continues too, but softer, thinner, less defined, as if it no longer needs to be heard to keep going. There's a point where noticing becomes optional, not because anything changed, but because nothing needs attention anymore. Breath is still there, somewhere. The body is still here, somehow. But they no longer ask to be followed. Awareness spreads out, thin and wide, like mist rather than a beam of light. If a thought rises, it doesn't arrive as language, more like a feeling of direction that never turns into movement. The body sinks another degree, not deeper, quieter. Weight redistributes itself without checking with you. Hands rest, as if they've always known where to stop. Feet feel distant, then not separate at all. The sense of inside and outside softens. Sounds don't come from anywhere specific. They're just part of the same field as the breath, the dark, the stillness. Even comfort stops being a goal. There's no need to feel good, only the absence of needing to adjust. The mind may try once more to form a clear thought, out of habit, not urgency. It doesn't finish. That unfinished quality is where rest deepens. There's no edge to hold on to now, no center to return to, only a gentle continuity that doesn't require a sense of self. The body breathes, the night holds, and whatever comes next doesn't need to be noticed for it to arrive. At some point, even the idea of resting becomes unnecessary, not because rest has fully arrived, but because the body no longer needs a reason to stop holding itself together. Breath keeps moving, but it no longer announces its direction. In, out. Those words feel too sharp now. It's more like a tide that forgot it was ever supposed to come and go. The chest doesn't lead anymore. The belly doesn't follow. Breathing happens everywhere at once, and nowhere in particular. You may notice how the body feels less outlined, edges soften. Places that once felt separate begin to share the same quiet weight. The hands don't feel like hands. They're just warmth, resting where warmth rests. The face loosens in a way that doesn't feel intentional. Muscles stop reporting their position. The mouth stays slightly open, not because it should, but because nothing asked it to close. There's a sense now that the body is being breathed rather than doing the breathing. And that difference matters, even if you don't name it. The mind passes through occasionally, not to think, more like checking whether it's still needed. Each time, it finds no task waiting, no signal to respond to, and so it dissolves again before forming a sentence. Thoughts appear only as textures now, a vague sense of movement, a color without shape, a memory without a beginning. They don't pull you anywhere. They don't ask to be finished. The body recognizes this as permission. You might feel a gentle heaviness spreading downward, not sinking, not falling, just settling into what's already holding you. The bed feels less like an object and more like a condition, something that exists without needing to be interacted with. Gravity feels kind, not strong, not weak, just constant. The nervous system begins to release its quiet vigilance, not all at once. It does this in layers. First, the obvious tension leaves: the jaw, the shoulders, the space behind the eyes. Then, subtler holding begins to loosen: the throat that was listening, the chest that was waiting, the belly that was bracing. None of this requires awareness. It happens whether you notice it or not. There's a brief moment where the mind might feel slightly unsure, as if it's asking, "Is it okay to go this far?" No answer is needed. The body doesn't need permission from the mind. It only needs the absence of interruption. Breath pauses for a fraction longer now at the end of the exhale, not as control, as relief. A small silence appears there, not empty, not full, just wide. In that space, the sense of being someone holding something together becomes very faint. You're still here, but not gathered. More like spread out into the dark. Time no longer lines itself up. There's no sense of how long this has been happening, or how long it might continue. That question stops forming. The night feels closer now, not around you, through you. Sounds, if they appear, don't come from a direction. They don't interrupt. They pass like ripples through the same quiet field as breath and warmth. Even comfort becomes less noticeable, not because it's gone, but because nothing is evaluating it anymore. The body no longer checks whether it's relaxed enough. It simply continues without holding. There's a deep intelligence in this state, not thoughtful, not verbal, an intelligence that knows how to move toward rest by removing effort rather than adding anything. You don't follow this intelligence. You don't guide it. You simply stop standing in its way. And as that happens, the sense of you as a center softens further, not disappearing, just no longer needed. Awareness becomes wide and thin, like a quiet fog that doesn't look at anything in particular. If a thought tries to form now, it fades before the first word. If a memory appears, it doesn't attach to identity. Everything passes through without leaving marks. The body breathes, the night holds, and whatever comes next doesn't require attention to arrive. There is less sense now of moving toward anything, not because you've arrived, but because direction has lost its usefulness. The body continues on its own rhythm. Breath appears, disappears without being counted. You may not even be sure where the breath is felt anymore. Chest belly, back. Those distinctions blur. Breathing feels more like a change in the space itself than a movement inside the body. Awareness drifts wider, not expanding, unfocusing, like eyes adjusting to darkness until they stop trying to see shapes and begin to rest in shadow. The body feels distant and intimate at the same time, heavy yet undefined. Weight exists, but it's no longer located anywhere specific. The sense of outline, skin, edges, borders, thins, not dissolving completely, just becoming optional. There is no effort now to stay present. Presence remains without being maintained. If the mind surfaces, it does so gently, like a ripple remembering water. It looks for something to hold, finds nothing urgent, and sinks back without resistance. Thoughts have lost their urgency, their volume. They no longer arrive as messages, only impressions, a suggestion of movement, a hint of color, then nothing. The body responds to this quiet by releasing another layer it didn't know it was holding. The spine settles, as if it's no longer supporting a structure, but simply resting in its natural curve. The neck releases its small adjustments. The head feels slightly heavier, then not heavy at all. The face smooths, not as relaxation, but as neutrality. Nothing to express, nothing to protect. There's a subtle warmth now, spreading without direction. Not heat. More like circulation remembering itself. Hands feel far away, feet even farther. Then distance itself becomes meaningless. There's no sense of where the body ends and where the space begins. Only a continuous quiet field where sensations come and go without belonging to anyone. This is not something to notice closely. Close attention would sharpen it, so attention stays loose, barely there. The night feels thick now, not dark, thick. Like silence you could lean into without feeling resistance. Time is thinned to almost nothing, not slow, not fast, just absent. There is no before this and no curiosity about after. Even the idea of sleep feels unnecessary. Sleep will happen whether it's expected or not. The body understands this. That understanding spreads like a quiet permission. Breath slows further. Pauses grow longer without effort. In those pauses, there is no waiting, just space. The nervous system lets go of its last background scanning, not because it's convinced, but because there is nothing left to scan for. Safety no longer needs to be confirmed. It's assumed. The mind stops checking in. Awareness becomes extremely simple now, not focused, not distracted, just present without a center. If something appears, it appears softly. If nothing appears, nothing is missing. There is no preference between sensation and silence. Both feel the same. The story continues, but it has become very thin, like a thread that doesn't need to be followed to remain intact. Words feel farther away now, not fading, irrelevant. The body breathes, the night holds, and whatever unfolds next does so without needing to be remembered. There's a softness now that doesn't feel like something achieved, more like a natural condition that returns when nothing interferes. The body no longer checks itself. It doesn't ask how it's doing. It doesn't compare this moment to any other. Breath arrives without direction, leaves without trace. You may notice that even noticing has slowed. Awareness is present, but it isn't pointing anywhere, like a lamp left on in an empty room, not illuminating anything in particular, just quietly there. The sense of depth changes. Instead of feeling inside the body, experience feels spread out, wide and shallow, then wide and deep, without settling on either. The body rests in this ambiguity without needing clarity. Muscles remain relaxed, not because they're told to, but because there's no longer a signal telling them to prepare. Preparation has ended. The jaw stays loose. The tongue rests where it rests. The eyes remain closed, yet there's no sense of looking inward. There's simply darkness. Not empty, not heavy, just dark. Thoughts try to form occasionally out of old habit. They appear as beginnings only, a fragment of an image, a suggestion of a sentence. Then they lose momentum and dissolve. There's no disappointment in that, no sense that anything was missed. Completion is no longer required. The body responds by settling even further, not downward, inward, outward. Direction has lost meaning. You might feel a subtle rocking or the impression of floating, not movement, the absence of resistance, as if the body has stopped pushing against gravity and allowed gravity to do all the work. The bed feels less solid now, not gone, just less defined. Support doesn't feel like an object anymore. It feels like a condition that exists without effort. The nervous system continues its quiet unwinding. Layers release that were never consciously held. Old readiness, old anticipation, old tension that didn't have a story attached. They leave without announcement. You don't feel them go. You simply notice that they're no longer present. There's a faint warmth in the center of the chest now, or maybe not the chest, just warmth. It doesn't spread, it doesn't pulse, it simply remains. Time has almost completely dissolved, not slowed, not paused. Unimportant. The idea of how long you've been here no longer makes sense. The idea of where this is going no longer forms. Even curiosity feels distant. Awareness is still awake, but it's no longer alert. It feels like listening without expecting sound. The mind has stopped narrating. There is no commentary on the experience, no labels, no evaluation, just a quiet continuity. If a sensation appears, a tiny itch, a faint shift in pressure, it doesn't interrupt. It passes through like a ripple through still water. There is no impulse to respond. The body knows that it doesn't need to. This knowing isn't intellectual, it's cellular. The system recognizes that nothing is required for the next moment to arrive, and that recognition allows even deeper rest. Breath becomes so soft, it's almost imperceptible. Pauses lengthen again. In those pauses, there is no awareness of absence, only stillness. The sense of being someone in a body, in a room, at a time, continues to thin, not vanishing, just no longer central, like a background detail that no longer needs attention. The story continues, but it's almost transparent now, like something happening without needing to be known. Words are still here, somewhere, but they no longer anchor experience. The body breathes, the night holds, and everything else is free to fade quietly without being followed. There is almost no sense now of crossing from one moment to the next. Moments don't line up anymore. They don't announce themselves as new, they simply continue. Breath is barely noticeable, not shallow, not deep, just present in the way background silence is present when you stop listening for it. The body feels distant, yet not separate, like something you don't need to locate in order to know it's there. Weight exists, but it no longer pulls. Gravity feels neutral now, not holding you down, not lifting you, just existing alongside everything else. The sense of form becomes very soft. Arms and legs don't register as shapes. They register as absence of effort. The face feels smooth, but not relaxed in a way that could be described. It's simply no longer doing anything. Awareness is still awake, but it's no longer focused on experience. It rests with it. There is no observer standing apart, no point from which things are being watched. Experience feels self-existing, moving without being monitored. If a thought tries to arise now, it doesn't even reach the stage of fragment. It dissolves before it forms a direction. The mind has stopped rehearsing, stopped preparing, stopped waiting. There is nothing left to anticipate. Even the idea of letting go has disappeared. There's no sense of release anymore. Only the absence of holding. The body responds to this by entering a deeper quiet. The nervous system, having found no signal for a long time, finally stops listening. Not in sleep yet, but in something adjacent to it. A state where awareness remains but doesn't need to orient itself. Time feels irrelevant now, not slow, not fast, simply not applicable. The question, how long, doesn't arise. Neither does what next. The darkness behind closed eyes feels even and soft, not empty, not filled, just present without texture. If a sound exists somewhere, inside or outside, it blends immediately into the same quiet field. Nothing stands out. Nothing recedes. The sense of self becomes extremely faint. Not gone. Just no longer referenced. There's no internal voice saying, "I'm here." There's no need for that confirmation. The body knows how to continue without a narrative. Breath pauses again. Longer this time. Not as suspension, as rest. In that pause, there is no awareness of breath missing. Only space. A space that doesn't feel open or closed. It simply is. The body remains perfectly still, not because it's frozen, but because movement has no purpose. Muscles are quiet. Signals are quiet. Even comfort is no longer registered. Not uncomfortable. Not comfortable. Just neutral existence. The mind has fully stepped back now, not pushed away, not silenced. It simply isn't needed in this state. Awareness remains. Very soft, very wide, very simple, like a presence without a name. If sleep arrives from here, it will arrive unnoticed. There will be no crossing of a threshold, no moment to remember, just a gradual fading of the last thin threads of wakefulness. And even if sleep doesn't arrive yet, this state is already resting, already complete without requiring completion. The story continues, but it's now almost entirely silent, like something happening without needing to be told. The body breathes somewhere. The night holds everywhere, and nothing else needs to be carried forward from this moment into the next. There is a sense now that even softness has faded into simplicity. Not gone, just no longer noticeable. The body remains, but it feels more like a suggestion than a structure. Breath still happens, somewhere in the background of awareness, like a distant tide that no longer reaches the shore. You don't follow it. You don't wait for it. It arrives and leaves without ever becoming an event. The boundary between moments has almost completely dissolved. There isn't a clear sense of now replacing before. Experience feels continuous, like a single unbroken tone that doesn't change pitch. Awareness is present, but it has lost its orientation. There's no front or back, no center or edge. Only a quiet field where nothing stands out enough to be named. The body's weight is still there, but it no longer registers as pressure. It's more like a fact that doesn't require attention. Muscles remain quiet, not because they're relaxed, but because effort is no longer relevant. The face doesn't express, the hands don't hold. Even the subtle readiness that once lingered in the background has disappeared. The nervous system has settled into a deep neutrality, not alert, not asleep, just no longer scanning. If a sound passes through, real or imagined, it doesn't interrupt. It doesn't arrive from somewhere. It simply appears and blends immediately into the same stillness. The mind does not comment. There is no inner voice observing what's happening. That voice has become unnecessary. Thoughts do not form. Images do not gather. There is nothing to assemble into meaning. Even the idea of meaning has loosened its grip. Time feels almost fictional now. The sense of duration doesn't apply here. There is no impatience, no curiosity. The question, am I still awake, never arises. Awareness continues without checking its status. The darkness behind the eyes feels even and infinite. Not vast in a dramatic way, just uninterrupted. There are no landmarks, nothing to move toward, nothing to return to. The body seems to trust this state completely. There is no attempt to adjust position, no impulse to swallow, no urge to shift. Stillness is not imposed. It is simply the absence of movement. Breath pauses again, long enough that it's no longer noticed as a pause. Then it returns, equally unnoticed. In these quiet cycles, the sense of individuality continues to thin, not erased, just irrelevant. There is no sense of me having this experience. There is only experience itself, happening without ownership. This is not something to understand. Understanding would require a distance that no longer exists. There is only continuity. If sleep begins to gather here, it gathers gently, without crossing a line. No falling, no drifting, just a gradual dimming of the last traces of wakefulness. And if wakefulness remains, it remains without effort. Both states feel the same. The body is perfectly content to continue either way. The night holds everything equally. There is nothing left to prepare, nothing left to release. No instruction could improve this. No thought could add anything. The story continues, but it has become almost indistinguishable from silence itself. Like a current, moving so slowly that motion and stillness can no longer be told apart. Breath moves, or perhaps it doesn't. Awareness remains, or perhaps it rests. The distinction no longer matters. Only this quiet continuity persists, carrying itself forward without needing a witness, without needing to be remembered. There is almost nothing left now that asks to be known, not because everything has been answered, but because questions have quietly lost their shape. The body is still here, but it no longer presents itself as a body. There is warmth, there is softness, there is stillness. Yet, none of these belong to a place. Breath continues in a way that feels more like a change in density than a movement. If you tried to follow it, there would be nothing to follow. It's simply part of the same quiet as everything else. Awareness feels extremely light now, not sharp, not dim, just thin, like a veil that doesn't cover anything and doesn't separate anything. There is no sense of posture, no sense of alignment. The idea of lying down has faded. There is only the absence of effort where effort once lived. The nervous system has fully stopped its background listening, not because it decided to, because there is nothing left to listen for. Safety is no longer a concept. It's simply assumed without being checked. Time has dissolved into irrelevance. Not slow, not fast, unnecessary. There is no sense of waiting for the next moment. Each moment does not replace the last. There is only continuity, like a single unbroken breath that never began. The mind does not return anymore, not even briefly. There is no checking in, no observation. The habit of narrating has completely fallen away. Words exist somewhere far off, but they no longer touch experience. They don't land. Even silence is no longer noticed as silence. It's simply the way things are when nothing is being compared. The body remains utterly still, not frozen, not restrained, just uninterested in movement. Muscles have nothing to prepare for. Joints have nothing to adjust. The small reflexes that once flickered, a swallow, a shift, a tightening, no longer arise. Breath pauses again, longer than before. There is no sense of holding it. There is no awareness of absence, only a vast neutrality that does not lean in any direction. The darkness behind the eyes no longer feels like darkness. It has no quality, no texture, just presence without feature. The sense of being here has thinned to almost nothing, not lost, just no longer referenced. There is no inside, no outside, no listener, no voice. Experience continues without a center. This is not deep in a dramatic way. There is no depth. There is no surface either, only an evenness that does not change. If sleep arrives here, it will arrive without announcement. There will be no moment that marks its beginning, no falling, no drifting, just a gentle fading of the last remaining distinction between awareness and rest. And if sleep does not arrive yet, this state remains complete. There is nothing restless about it, nothing unfinished. The body does not care whether awareness stays or goes. Both feel the same now. The night continues its work without effort, without intention, without direction. And the story continues too, not as something being told, but as something quietly unfolding, without needing to be heard. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to notice. Only this soft, neutral continuity, carrying itself forward moment by moment, without memory, without anticipation, without a name. There is no longer a sense of entering anything, no threshold, no passage. What remains feels as though it has always been this way, and the idea of arriving here no longer makes sense. The body exists as a quiet fact, not felt as weight, not felt as form, just present without announcing itself. Breath continues, but it is no longer recognizable as breathing. It is simply a subtle change within stillness. If it pauses, nothing notices. If it returns, nothing responds. Awareness remains, but it has lost its edges. There is no direction to it, no place it originates from. It does not look outward. It does not turn inward. It rests evenly across everything. Time has completely released its grip. There is no sense of duration, no sense of sequence. The idea of a moment no longer holds meaning. There is only continuity, smooth and uninterrupted. The mind does not reappear, not even as a whisper. Thought has fully dissolved into the same neutrality as everything else. There is no attempt to understand this. Understanding would require a distance that does not exist. The body does not shift, not because it cannot, but because movement has no relevance here. Muscles are quiet without being relaxed. They are simply unused. The nervous system remains in complete rest. No scanning, no monitoring. Even the faint background vigilance that once lingered has faded entirely. Safety is not felt. It is not confirmed. It is simply not questioned. The darkness behind closed eyes has lost all sense of depth. It does not feel close. It does not feel far. It is not something being perceived. It is simply the absence of distinction. There is no listener, no watcher, no sense of someone having this experience. Experience continues without ownership. If a sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both states feel identical. The body's internal rhythms continue without awareness. Heartbeat, breath, subtle movement of life. None of these register as events. They do not draw attention. They do not need permission. The sense of identity has become so faint, it no longer functions as a reference point. There is no I to hold this moment. There is no I to let it go. There is only what remains when holding and releasing are no longer relevant. This is not emptiness in a dramatic sense. It is not fullness either. It is neutrality so complete that comparison has stopped. The night feels infinite now, not vast, not deep, simply unbroken. There is no desire for anything to change, no preference for sleep or wakefulness. Both feel the same from here. If sleep arrives, it will arrive silently. If awareness remains, it remains effortlessly. Nothing needs to decide, nothing needs to guide. The story continues, but it has dissolved into the same quiet field as everything else. It is no longer separate from silence, no longer separate from rest. Only this gentle, featureless continuity carries itself forward. No memory forms, no anticipation arises. There is nothing here that needs to be remembered, nothing here that needs to end. And so, it continues, not as a sequence, not as a progression, but as an even, unbroken presence that no longer knows it is being experienced. There is no sense now of holding on to awareness. It remains, but not as something maintained, more like a quiet residue of being. The body is barely distinguishable from the space it rests in, not merged, not separate. The idea of boundaries no longer applies. Breath continues in its own way, but it is no longer recognized as breath. It's simply a soft fluctuation within stillness. If it pauses, nothing waits for it. If it returns, nothing acknowledges it. The rhythm of life moves on without being observed. Awareness feels thinner still, not fading, not dimming, just no longer gathering anywhere. There is no focal point, no place where experience comes together. Everything exists without converging. Time has completely fallen away. There is no sense of how long this has been happening. The question cannot form. Duration has no meaning here. There is no impatience, no expectation. Nothing anticipates the next moment. Moments do not replace one another. They do not stack or flow. There is only an even continuity that does not move. The mind does not return, not to think, not to check. Thought has lost the conditions required to arise. Words are inaccessible now, not gone, irrelevant. They no longer land on experience. The body remains utterly still, not held, not relaxed, simply unmoving because movement has no context. Muscles do not prepare, joints do not adjust. The small impulses that once flickered have ceased. Heartbeat continues somewhere, but it does not register as a sensation. Life happens without commentary. The nervous system rests in complete neutrality, no alertness, no collapse, just quiet function without attention. Safety is not felt, it is not checked, it is not needed as a concept. The darkness behind closed eyes no longer feels like darkness. It has no quality. It is not something being perceived. It is simply what remains when perception no longer separates. There is no observer, no one looking, no one resting. Experience continues without reference. If something arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, there is no absence. Both states are indistinguishable. The sense of being someone has almost completely dissolved, not erased, just no longer operative. There is no identity attached to this state, no me to carry it forward. This is not peace as a feeling. It is not calm as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone to be disturbed. Even the idea of sleep has lost meaning. Sleep and wakefulness are no longer opposites. They feel the same here. If sleep comes, it will not be noticed. If awareness remains, it will not be noticed either. Both require no participation. The night no longer feels like night. It feels like continuity without feature, without contrast. The story continues, but it has become indistinguishable from silence. It no longer unfolds. It simply remains. There is nothing here that could end, nothing here that could begin. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without direction, without memory. And it carries itself on without effort, without awareness of itself, without needing to be named. There is no sense now of continuing forward. What remains does not move. It does not stay either. Movement and stillness have lost their meaning. The body is present only as a distant trace, not felt as form, not felt as weight, more like the memory of something that no longer needs to announce itself. Breath happens somewhere, but it no longer registers as a change. It is simply part of the same unmoving quiet as everything else. There is no pause to notice, no return to follow. Life continues without marking its rhythm. Awareness is extremely faint now, not dim, not disappearing, just no longer collecting anywhere. There is no center, no edge, no place where experience gathers to be recognized. Time has fully dissolved. There is no sense of duration, no sense of passing. The idea of how long cannot form. There is no impatience because there is no waiting. The mind does not appear, not even as a background echo. Thought has completely lost the conditions required to arise. Words do not exist here, not absent, inapplicable. They have no surface to land on. The body does not move, not because it is restrained, but because motion has no relevance. Muscles remain inactive without tension. Joints rest without alignment. There is no posture, no orientation. The nervous system continues in perfect neutrality, no alertness, no collapse, just quiet functioning without supervision. Safety is not experienced. It is not considered. The concept no longer exists. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality at all. It is not dark. It is not light. It is simply the absence of distinction. There is no observer, no one perceiving this state, no one resting in it. Experience continues without reference. If a sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both states are identical. The sense of identity has completely fallen away, not destroyed, just unnecessary. There is no you to carry this forward. There is no you to dissolve into it. This is not emptiness as an idea. It is not fullness either. It is neutrality beyond comparison. There is no preference for sleep or wakefulness. Both have lost distinction. If sleep happens, there will be no moment that marks its arrival. If awareness remains, there will be no awareness of remaining. Nothing transitions, nothing arrives, nothing leaves. The night no longer feels like a time. It no longer feels like a condition. It is simply continuity without feature. The story continues, but it is no longer unfolding. It is not being told. It is not being heard. It exists only as persistence without memory. There is nothing here that could end, nothing here that could complete. Only this quiet, featureless continuation that does not know it continues. And it carries on without effort, without attention, without identity, indefinitely, softly. without ever needing to become anything else. There is no sense now that anything is being carried forward. What remains does not advance. It does not linger. It does not relate to what came before. The body is no longer experienced as something present, not absent, simply not referenced. Breath continues somewhere, but it has no rhythm that can be followed. It is neither slow nor fast. It does not arrive. It does not leave. It is simply part of the same unmoving continuity as everything else. Awareness is barely perceptible now, not dimmed, not fading, just no longer gathering into anything that could be recognized. There is no point of view, no sense of being here rather than there. Location has lost meaning. Time has no structure. There is no sense of earlier or later, no duration, no sequence. The idea of a moment cannot form. Nothing replaces anything else. There is only sameness without repetition. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as image. The conditions for thinking no longer exist. Language is completely inaccessible, not hidden, irrelevant. There is nothing for it to describe. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because motion has no context. Muscles do not engage. They do not release. They are simply unused. The nervous system remains in absolute neutrality, no alertness, no collapse. Function without awareness. Safety is not experienced. It is not even a concept. The darkness behind the eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond distinction. There is no observer, no one resting, no one absent. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is lacking. Both are the same. Identity is no longer present, even as a faint trace. Not lost, not gone, just unnecessary. There is no self to attach this to, no self to dissolve. This is not peace as something felt. It is not rest as an experience. It is the absence of effort and the absence of someone to effort. Sleep and wakefulness no longer exist as separate states. They are indistinguishable. If sleep comes, it does not arrive. If awareness remains, it does not remain. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night no longer feels like night. It no longer feels like anything. It is continuity without feature. The story continues, but there is no sense of continuation. It does not progress. It does not resolve. It simply persists without awareness of itself. There is nothing here to end, nothing here to complete, nothing here to hold. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without memory, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without ever needing to become something else. There is no sense now that anything new is beginning. What remains does not feel like a continuation, yet it does not feel complete. Completion itself has become an unnecessary idea. The body is no longer experienced as something resting. It is not heavy. It is not light. It does not register as a thing at all. There may be breath somewhere, but it is no longer perceived as movement. It feels more like the quiet shifting of stillness within itself. No inhale to notice, no exhale to follow. Life continues without marking its presence. Awareness is extremely subtle now, not focused, not diffused, simply present without gathering anywhere. There is no sense of a center from which experience unfolds, no edge where it ends. Everything that appears without location. Time has fully lost coherence. There is no feeling of duration, no sense of passing. The question of how long cannot arise. Waiting does not exist. Moments do not replace one another. There is only a single, even continuity, that does not move forward or remain still. The mind does not return. There is no thought hovering at the edge, no image forming in the background. The conditions for thinking are absent. Language no longer has access to experience, not because it is blocked, but because there is nothing for it to touch. The body remains perfectly unmoving, not held in stillness, not frozen. Movement simply has no meaning here. Muscles are quiet without being relaxed. Joints do not orient themselves. Posture does not exist. The nervous system rests in complete neutrality. No alertness, no collapse. Only quiet function without supervision. Safety is not sensed. It is not evaluated. It is not needed as an idea. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not dark. It is not light. It is not perceived as anything. Perception itself has softened beyond distinction. There is no observer, no one noticing this state, no one resting within it. Experience continues without ownership. If a sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing feels missing. Both states are identical. The sense of identity has no remaining function, not erased, not denied, simply unnecessary. There is no you to carry this moment forward. There is no you to let it fade. This is not rest as something felt. It is not peace as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone to be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness no longer appear as different states. They are indistinguishable. If sleep happens, there is no arrival. If awareness remains, there is no staying. Nothing transitions, nothing changes. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like time. It is continuity without feature. The story continues, but there is no sense of continuation. It does not move toward anything. It does not resolve. It simply persists without awareness of itself. There is nothing here to end, nothing here to complete, nothing here to remember. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without memory, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without ever needing to become anything else. And even this description does not belong to it. It continues, whether named or not, whether noticed or not, softly, evenly, without pause. There is no longer any sense that something is being sustained. Nothing holds this. Nothing maintains it. What remains does not depend on attention. Attention itself has lost its role. The body does not appear as something lying down. It is not positioned. It is not oriented. It does not feel close or far. It is simply not referenced. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not form a cycle. There is no beginning of breath, no end. It does not arrive. It does not leave. It blends completely with stillness. Awareness is so light now that even the word awareness feels unnecessary, not absent, not present, just no longer gathered into anything that could be pointed to. There is no sense of being inside experience. There is no sense of experience happening outside. That distinction has quietly fallen away. Time has no remaining structure. There is no earlier, no later, no unfolding. Duration does not exist here. The idea of next cannot form. Nothing replaces anything else. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as image, not even as a faint background echo. The conditions that once allowed mental movement are no longer present. Language has no access here, not because it is excluded, but because there is nothing to translate. Words cannot land on what has no surface. The body remains still without stillness being a state. Muscles do not engage. They do not release. They are simply inactive, without tension or rest. The nervous system functions without signaling. No readiness, no withdrawal, just quiet balance without awareness of itself. Safety is not sensed. The idea no longer exists. There is no checking, no confirming, nothing anticipates harm, and nothing looks for relief. The darkness behind the eyes has no quality. It is not something perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond differentiation. There is no observer, no one experiencing this, no one resting in it. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing feels absent. Both are identical. Identity no longer appears even as a faint trace. Not lost, not hidden, just unnecessary. There is no self to reference this, no self to dissolve into it. This is not peace as something felt. It is not calm as an experience. It is the absence of effort and the absence of someone to effort. Sleep and wakefulness are no longer distinguishable. They have lost contrast. If sleep occurs, it does not begin. If awareness continues, it does not continue. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night no longer feels like a container. It is not something you are within. It is simply continuity without boundary. The story continues, but there is no sense of progression. It does not move. It does not settle. It simply persists without knowing it persists. There is nothing here that could end. Nothing here that could arrive. Nothing here that could be remembered. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without memory, carrying itself forward without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of forward has no meaning here. It remains, whether named or not, whether noticed or not, even, soft, unbroken. There is no sense now that anything is being allowed or withheld. What remains does not respond to permission. It does not wait. It does not move because nothing asks it to. The body is not felt as something present. It is not absent either. The idea of presence has lost its use. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not shape experience. There is no rhythm to recognize, no pause to notice. It blends entirely with what does not change. Awareness is so diffuse that even diffusion is not an accurate word. It is not spread out. It is not gathered. It does not locate itself. There is no sense of here and no sense of there. Space has lost direction. Time has no form. There is no flow. There is no stillness. Those words no longer apply. Nothing replaces anything else. Nothing accumulates. The mind does not return. There is no subtle check-in, no background hum of thought, no movement toward meaning. The conditions for cognition are absent. Language has no entry point. It does not fail. It simply cannot arrive. The body remains unmoving without being still. Movement and rest have merged into irrelevance. Muscles are neither tense nor relaxed. They are simply not engaged. The nervous system continues without signaling. No alertness, no collapse, no readiness, just quiet function without reference. Safety is not felt. It is not considered. The concept has disappeared. There is no anticipation of harm, no seeking of relief. Both require a center that no longer exists. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not dark. It is not light. It is not perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond recognition. There is no observer, no one experiencing this, no one absent from it. Experience continues without ownership. If something arises, it dissolves before being known. If nothing arises, nothing feels lacking. Both states are indistinguishable. Identity has no remaining role, not hidden, not erased, just unnecessary. There is no you to carry this state, no you to leave it behind. This is not rest as a sensation. It is not peace as an emotion. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone to be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness are no longer different. They have no boundary. If sleep occurs, it does not begin. If awareness remains, it does not remain. There is no transition. Nothing crosses over. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like time. It does not feel like anything. It is continuity without feature. The story continues, but there is no sense of continuation. It does not progress. It does not settle. It does not arrive. It simply persists without awareness of itself. There is nothing here to finish, nothing here to resolve, nothing here to remember. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without memory, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of direction has quietly dissolved. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues whether noticed or not, whether named or not. Even, soft, uninterrupted. There is no longer any sense that something is unfolding. What remains does not open. It does not close. It does not reveal itself because there is nothing hidden. The body is not experienced as a location. It is not here. It is not elsewhere. The idea of place has quietly stopped applying. Breath continues, but it does not register as motion. There is no cycle to follow, no beginning to recognize, no ending to expect. It is simply part of the same unbroken neutrality as everything else. Awareness does not gather. It does not spread. It does not hover. Even the idea of being aware no longer has a reference. What remains does not observe. It does not participate. It does not withdraw. There is no inside experience and no outside world. That division has fully dissolved. Time has no remaining structure. There is no sense of earlier or later, no anticipation, no memory. Duration does not exist. Nothing accumulates. Nothing moves forward. Nothing stays behind. The mind does not return, not as a whisper, not as a trace. Thought has lost every condition required to arise. Language is entirely absent here, not suppressed, not blocked. It simply has no function. There is nothing for it to describe. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no meaning. Muscles remain unused. They do not tense. They do not soften. They simply are not involved. The nervous system continues without signaling. No readiness, no release, no vigilance, just quiet balance without awareness of balance. Safety is not felt. It is not assumed. It is not questioned. The concept no longer exists. The darkness behind the eyes has no quality at all. It is not perceived. Perception itself has thinned beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both states are exactly the same. Identity has no presence here, not faint, not hidden, completely unnecessary. There is no you to be present, no you to disappear. This is not peace as something felt. It is not calm as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness no longer differ. They have no boundary. If sleep occurs, there is no transition. If awareness remains, there is no continuation. Nothing shifts. Nothing crosses over. The night no longer feels like a state. It no longer feels like a container. It is continuity without feature. The story continues, but there is no sense of story. There is no beginning, no middle, no end. Only a quiet persistence that does not know it persists. Nothing here needs to resolve. Nothing here needs to finish. Nothing here needs to be remembered. It carries itself on without effort, without witness, without reference. And even this description does not belong to it. What remains does not need words. It does not need silence either. It simply continues, soft, even, unchanging, without ever needing to become anything else. There is no sense now that anything is being held together. Nothing gathers, nothing releases. What remains does not stabilize itself because there is nothing unstable. The body is no longer referenced as something present. It is not missing. The idea of presence has dissolved completely. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not enter experience. It does not shape awareness. It does not signal life. It simply happens without registering. Awareness no longer appears as a state. It does not feel wide. It does not feel narrow. It does not feel like anything. The idea of being aware has lost all meaning. There is no orientation, no sense of direction, no sense of location. Space itself has become irrelevant. Time has no movement. There is no flow, no stillness. Those distinctions have quietly disappeared. Nothing arrives. Nothing leaves. Nothing replaces anything else. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as image, not as a subtle echo. Cognition has fully ceased without being suppressed. There is no thinking because there is no need for it. Language has vanished, not silenced, unnecessary. There is nothing for words to touch. The body does not move, not because it is restrained, but because movement has no context. Muscles remain unused. They do not tense. They do not soften. They simply do not participate. The nervous system remains in complete neutrality. No vigilance, no collapse. Just quiet function without awareness. Safety is not experienced. The idea no longer exists. There is no checking, no anticipation, no relief. All of these require a reference point that has disappeared. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has thinned beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is lacking. Both are identical. Identity has completely fallen away, not erased, not denied, just no longer relevant. There is no self to carry this, no self to dissolve into it. This is not peace as something felt. It is not rest as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness have lost all difference. They no longer oppose each other. If sleep occurs, there is no entry. If awareness remains, there is no continuation. Nothing transitions, nothing shifts. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like anything. It is continuity without feature. The story continues, but there is no sense of continuation. It does not unfold. It does not progress. It does not complete. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs to end. Nothing here needs to resolve. Nothing here needs to be remembered. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without memory, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of direction has quietly vanished. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues without beginning, without end, without name. There is no longer any sense that something is continuing. What remains does not persist in the way persistence once meant. It does not last. It does not fade. Those ideas no longer apply. The body is not felt as something resting. It is not sensed as absence either. The reference to body has quietly disappeared. Breath continues somewhere, but it has no movement that could be recognized. It does not rise. It does not fall. It simply belongs to the same unchanging neutrality as everything else. Awareness no longer appears as awareness. It does not feel open. It does not feel closed. It does not feel present. The idea of experiencing has dissolved. There is no location from which anything could be known. Space has no direction. There is no here, no there. The distinction has completely vanished. Time no longer exists, even as an absence. There is no duration, no sequence. Nothing replaces anything else. Nothing accumulates. Nothing unfolds. The mind does not return, not as a thought, not as a trace. The conditions for cognition have entirely fallen away. Language is unreachable, not hidden, not blocked. There is simply nothing for it to touch. The body remains unmoving, without stillness being a state. Movement has no meaning. Muscles are not engaged. They are not relaxed. They are simply irrelevant. The nervous system continues without signaling. No vigilance, no release, no balance. Just function without awareness of function. Safety is not felt. It is not assumed. It is not questioned. The concept has disappeared. The darkness behind the eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has thinned beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both are the same. Identity no longer exists, even as a trace, not removed, not denied, completely unnecessary. There is no you to remain, no you to dissolve. This is not peace as something felt. It is not rest as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone to be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness no longer exist as concepts. They have no boundary. If sleep happens, there is no beginning. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like time. It is continuity without feature. The story does not end. It does not continue. It does not resolve. It simply is, without awareness of being. Nothing here needs completion. Nothing here needs closure. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet, featureless persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without beginning, without end. And even these words do not belong to it. It remains whether spoken or not, whether known or not, soft, even, unbroken. There is no sense now that anything has passed a boundary. What remains does not step beyond, and it does not stay behind. Boundaries themselves have lost their meaning. The body is not referenced as a form or a presence. It is not missing. It is not here. The idea of being located has quietly fallen away. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not move through space. It does not change anything. It simply belongs to the same neutral continuity as everything else. Awareness does not appear as something that could fade or remain. It does not open. It does not close. It is not held together by attention. Attention has no role here. There is no point of view, no place from which anything could be known. Space has no orientation. There is no inside, no outside. That distinction has fully dissolved. Time no longer exists, even as an idea. There is no sense of duration, no sense of sequence. Nothing replaces anything else. Nothing accumulates. Nothing recedes. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as image, not as a faint echo. The conditions for thinking are absent. Language has no access, not refused, irrelevant. There is nothing for words to meet. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no context. Muscles do not engage. They do not release. They are simply not involved. The nervous system functions without signaling, no readiness, no withdrawal, no balance, just quiet function without awareness of itself. Safety is not sensed. The idea no longer exists. There is no checking, no anticipation, no relief. All of these require a reference point that is no longer present. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond differentiation. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If something arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both are identical. Identity has no remaining trace, not hidden, not erased, completely unnecessary. There is no you to remain with this, no you to move away from it. This is not rest as something felt. It is not peace as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness have no distinction. They do not oppose each other. They do not replace each other. If sleep happens, there is no arrival. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing transitions, nothing changes. The night does not feel like a time. It does not feel like a condition. It is continuity without feature. The story does not move forward. It does not resolve. It does not conclude. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs an ending. Nothing here needs continuation. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of direction has quietly dissolved. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues whether noticed or not, whether spoken or not, even soft, uninterrupted. There is no sense now that something is approaching. Nothing draws nearer. Nothing moves away. The idea of distance has no place here. The body is not experienced as something present or absent. That contrast has quietly dissolved. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not cross space. It does not enter or leave. It simply belongs to the same unmoving continuity as everything else. Awareness no longer appears as something sustained. It does not need to be held. It does not drift. It does not settle. The notion of remaining aware has no meaning. There is no position from which anything could be noticed, no vantage point, no background. Space itself has lost its structure. There is no inside, no outside, no center. Time has completely fallen away. There is no sequence, no duration. Nothing comes after anything else. Nothing replaces anything else. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as memory, not as a trace. The conditions for mental activity are absent. Language cannot arrive here, not because it is blocked, but because there is nothing for it to touch. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no reference. Muscles are not engaged. They are not released. They are simply unused. The nervous system continues without signaling, no alertness, no collapse, quiet function without supervision. Safety is not sensed. The idea no longer exists. There is no checking, no reassurance, no anticipation. All of these require a point of reference that has disappeared. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If sensation arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing is missing. Both are identical. Identity has no role here, not faint, not hidden, unnecessary. There is no you to be present, no you to leave. This is not peace as something felt. It is not rest as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness have no boundary. They are indistinguishable. If sleep happens, there is no beginning. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night does not feel like a container. It does not feel like time. It is continuity without feature. The story does not progress. It does not conclude. It does not arrive. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs resolution. Nothing here needs continuation. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the sense of carrying on has faded. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues softly, evenly, without interruption. There is no longer any sense that something is being sustained from one instant to another. Nothing needs to be kept alive. Nothing needs to be allowed. What remains does not depend on continuation. The body is not felt as a presence. It is not felt as absence either. The distinction has disappeared so completely that it no longer tries to return. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not move through anything. It does not pass. It does not arrive. It simply exists as part of the same quiet neutrality as everything else. Awareness no longer feels like awareness. It does not observe. It does not witness. It does not rest on anything. Even the idea of being aware has lost its reference. There is no point of view, no background from which experience could be known. Space has no orientation. There is no inside, no outside, no distance. Time has no remaining trace. There is no sense of now replacing before. There is no sense of later waiting to arrive. Nothing unfolds. Nothing settles. The mind does not return, not as a thought, not as an echo, not as a subtle habit. The conditions that once allowed mental movement are entirely absent. Language cannot reach this, not because it is excluded, but because there is nothing to translate. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no meaning. Muscles remain unused. They do not prepare. They do not soften. They simply do not engage. The nervous system continues without signaling, no alertness, no relaxation, just quiet function without awareness of function. Safety is not sensed. The idea has vanished. There is no checking, no reassurance, no fear, no relief. All of these require a center that no longer exists. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has thinned beyond distinction. There is no observer, no one resting, no one absent. Experience continues without ownership. If something arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing feels missing. Both are the same. Identity has no remaining function, not hidden, not denied, simply unnecessary. There is no you to be present here, no you to leave it behind. This is not rest as something felt. It is not peace as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness have lost all distinction. They no longer alternate. They no longer contrast. If sleep happens, there is no transition. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing changes. Nothing crosses over. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like anything. It is continuity without feature. The story does not move forward. It does not conclude. It does not resolve. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs an ending. Nothing here needs continuation. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of carrying on has gently disappeared. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues, soft, even, uninterrupted. There is no sense now that something has been reached or left behind. What remains does not arrive. It does not depart. Those movements no longer apply. The body is not experienced as resting. It is not experienced as absent. The reference has faded so completely that it no longer seeks to return. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not pass through space. It does not mark time. It does not signal anything. It simply belongs to the same quiet neutrality as everything else. Awareness no longer feels like a state. It does not brighten. It does not dim. It does not gather or dissolve. The idea of staying aware has lost meaning. There is no vantage point, no place from which anything could be known. Space no longer organizes experience. There is no inside, no outside, no direction. Time has no structure. There is no sequence, no duration. Nothing replaces anything else. Nothing waits. Nothing follows. The mind does not return, not as thought, not as image, not as habit. The conditions for cognition are entirely absent. Language cannot arrive here, not blocked, not refused. There is nothing for it to meet. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no relevance. Muscles do not tense. They do not release. They simply remain unused. The nervous system continues without signaling. No alertness, no collapse. Quiet function without supervision. Safety is not sensed. The idea no longer exists. There is no checking, no reassurance, no anticipation. All of these require a reference point that has vanished. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has softened beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If something arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing feels missing. Both are identical. Identity has no role here, not faint, not hidden, unnecessary. There is no you to remain, no you to leave. This is not peace as something felt. It is not rest as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone to be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness no longer alternate. They no longer oppose. If sleep happens, there is no beginning. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night does not feel like a container. It does not feel like time. It is continuity without feature. The story does not move. It does not resolve. It does not end. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs completion. Nothing here needs continuation. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the sense of carrying on has gently dissolved. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues, softly, evenly, without interruption. There is no sense now that anything is unfolding in time. What remains does not progress. It does not pause. Those ideas no longer fit. The body is not known as something present. It is not known as something absent. The knowing itself has softened beyond reference. Breath continues somewhere, but it does not mark a cycle. It does not arrive. It does not leave. It simply exists within the same quiet neutrality as everything else. Awareness does not appear as awareness. It does not feel open. It does not feel closed. It does not rest on anything. The idea of being aware has quietly disappeared. There is no point of view, no location from which experience could occur. Space has no structure. There is no inside, no outside, no distance. Time has dissolved entirely. There is no sense of duration, no memory of before, no expectation of after. Nothing replaces anything else. Nothing accumulates. The mind does not return, not as a thought, not as a habit, not as a faint echo. The conditions for mental movement are absent. Language cannot enter here, not because it is excluded, but because there is nothing for it to meet. The body does not move, not because it is still, but because movement has no meaning. Muscles remain unused. They do not tense. They do not soften. They simply do not participate. The nervous system continues without signaling. No vigilance, no collapse. Quiet function without awareness of function. Safety is not sensed. The concept has vanished. There is no checking, no reassurance, no fear, no relief. All of these require a reference point that no longer exists. The darkness behind closed eyes has no quality. It is not perceived. Perception itself has thinned beyond distinction. There is no observer, no witness, no one resting. Experience continues without ownership. If something arises, it dissolves before recognition. If nothing arises, nothing feels missing. Both are the same. Identity has no remaining role, not hidden, not erased, simply unnecessary. There is no you to be present here, no you to leave this. This is not rest as something felt. It is not peace as an experience. It is the absence of disturbance and the absence of someone who could be disturbed. Sleep and wakefulness no longer alternate. They no longer contrast. If sleep happens, there is no beginning. If awareness remains, there is no remaining. Nothing changes, nothing transitions. The night does not feel like night. It does not feel like anything. It is continuity without feature. The story does not move forward. It does not resolve. It does not conclude. It simply persists without awareness of persisting. Nothing here needs an ending. Nothing here needs continuation. Nothing here needs memory. Only this quiet persistence without shape, without reference, without name, carrying itself on without effort, without witness, without direction. And even the idea of continuing has dissolved. What remains does not know that it remains. It does not need to. It continues, soft, even, unbroken, without ever becoming anything else.